someone else as well. We have a guest that we can bring in now, Yossi Kupperwasser, excuse me, the former head of the IDF, Military Intelligence Research, and the former Israeli JCPOA negotiator. Yossi, thank you so much for joining us today. Now, as I just mentioned, you were one of the negotiators for the Joint Comprehensive Plan of Action. That's the 2016 Iran nuclear deal that Trump threw out. Now he's obviously a couple last days trying to renegotiate, but that ended in military strikes. So do you think those talks would ever have ended up being successful? And if not, why?
These current talks, I was very skeptical about the chances that these talks will be successful, because the utmost flexibility that the Iranians can show is not enough to satisfy the minimum demands of the Americans. The minimum demand of the Americans was that the Iranian will give up the nuclear project and give up enrichment of uranium, and the Iranians were not ready to do that. So this was going nowhere anyhow. And the Americans were trying to convince the Iranians to give up the enrichment of uranium, and the Iranians refused repeatedly. So it left both sides with no other option but to give up on the negotiations. It turned into something that just is being used by the Iranians in order to buy time, nothing more than that. And the Americans said enough is enough.
Yossi, so these previous strikes that we saw on Iran that were carried out in June by the U.S., they were limited in scope, limited to nuclear facilities there. This is currently a much wider operation. So why has the U.S. joined up with Israel?
Well, I'm not sure that they joined up with Israel. Both sides joined up with the other and the same target of getting the Middle East rid of, and the Iranian people rid of this regime that just brings with itself terror and instability and bad things, and an attempt to become a nuclear power. And we tried for 47 years to accommodate this regime, and all we saw is havoc and problems all around the Middle East caused by this regime. So the outcome of that was that the Americans reached the conclusion that enough is enough, and this regime has to go. And since they cannot make the regime go by themselves, they just are determined to create the conditions to pave the road for the Iranian people to get rid of this regime. That's what they're trying to accomplish by this operation, together with Israel.
Yossi, please stay with us for a moment. I just want to go back to Tehran and bring in our correspondent there, Reza Saya. So, Reza, at the moment we're discussing the diplomatic talks that obviously ended up in failure because the U.S. and Israel launched a military attack. There was concerns that Iran might have been trying to use this opportunity to stall. Do you agree with that assessment, or do you think the talks could have ended up being successful?
I think repeatedly the Iranian government showed flexibility, showed willingness to make concessions. They signed a 2015 nuclear agreement with all the world powers, what many see as an unprecedented agreement that was ripped up by U.S. President Donald Trump. Despite the fact that he ripped up the JCPOA, Iran went behind the negotiating table, again, looking to make concessions. But again, those talks were not fruitful. And many in Tehran view that this is Israel's war, that this was not a war that benefits the Americans, the American people. It is clear that no country in this region wanted this war. It is of many people's view that this was Israel's war, and it has happened. It has happened, and we'll see where things go from here.
Reza, thank you very much. We'll be speaking with you later on in the program. So I want to bring back in our guest now. So Yossi, one of the objectives here at this point, I mean, since we heard from Donald Trump, is regime change. He's urged, the Iranians to rise up when military operations are over. But isn't this a rather fraught proposal? I mean, in Libya and Afghanistan and Iraq, regime change hasn't turned out so well. What makes you think this time it'll be better?
First of all, you're right. We don't know what's going to happen in the day after, if there is a day after. We don't know that. But we have already experienced 47 years of this regime, and we know how bad it is, not only for the region and for the international community, but also for the Iranians themselves. They had to go to the streets and demonstrate against this regime, calling for the death of the dictator, as they said. And what they were facing was readiness by the regime to shoot them in the head. And nobody knows the exact number, but more than 30,000 probably were murdered by the regime. So any replacement of this regime is going to be better than this one. And there is a reason to hope that after 47 years under this regime, we shall have a totally different Iran that is really worried about the well-being of its people, Iran that wants to be a good neighbor to all the other countries of the Middle East, Iran that can cooperate with economically and technologically. They are very capable. They can cooperate with the rest of the Middle East on all these matters, including with Israel. And we are looking forward to see a totally different Iran. And that's for the better of everybody, first and foremost for the Iranians themselves.